Reverend Charlie over here. Reverend Charlie is our Southwest Region representative. If I get in trouble, that's who I call. Now it happens that we like each other a lot. On the bottom, this is Reverend Carla. Reverend Carla is the minister at Unity San Diego, and I'm in the middle. And do you remember that I was going to pray with a young man who had a stroke and was in a coma? And I didn't know him at all. And he gave me the best Valentine's Day. Because on Valentine's Day, he started to wake up. And he was communicating with his eyes. And I was like, Bill, are you trying to talk to me? And he'd blink at me. And I'd say, blink twice for yes. And he'd blink twice. Okay, Bill, do you want me to take all your blankets off? Blink one for no. And Bill blinked one for no. The day before, they had told his sister that he was going to need hospice. And that day, that Valentine's Day, was the most amazing thing, because he had been in a coma the whole time I had been going and praying for him. This is his sister. She is a Unity minister, and she's the one who put the call out, my brother had a stroke in LA, I can't be there, can some Unity minister please go pray with him? So I had lost my sister in October, and the call came out in December. And what happens is if you're going through something, the universe, God, tends to give you more of that. So I got to go and pray with this man, and he eventually passed. So he had started to rally, and then he had another stroke, and he passed. I think it was in May. So, but I met his sister, and we hugged. We were triggering each other's grief all over the place. And she was the most beautiful soul. Her name is Victoria, and she's in a church in, I believe it's South Carolina. So up there is Reverend Rachel, and she's getting ordained. She came from New Zealand. So she had a fight. When I would hang out with her, I'd start to talk like her. I pick up accents really, like Madonna. If I go to England, I'm going to pick up that accent, you know. Do you recognize our own Reverend Ken in the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our Reverend Ken. That was at the topic was Back to the Future, and this was at the Under the Sea dance that they did. And then Thomas DeShooter, who rode to California and was going back through California to get to Canada. So he rode his motorcycle from Western Canada down to get ordained, and he got ordained. And then he called me up and he said, I think I'm going back home through Los Angeles. And I said, do you want to teach class? So he taught a class this past week. So that's Thomas. So today my talk is about understanding. And I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. It was Freedom Day. People had the freedom to light off all the fireworks that they wanted to. I have a dog that's terrorized, so I'm very mixed about the holiday. The definition of freedom is the power or right to act and speak or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. And I don't know about your neighborhood, but my neighborhood, they had no hindrance and no restraint. So our friend Thomas DeShooter was here visiting from Canada, and he did the 12 Powers class. So I thought I would follow up with a talk about the power that is designated for this month. And the power is called understanding. And the apostle associated with it is, guess who the apostle is?
Who is it?
Guess who? Thomas. That's right. Somebody took a 12 Powers class. That's Thomas. So there are 12 powers. Charles Fillmore, the co-creator of Unity, identified these spiritual tools for an abundant life. So how many people know what the 12 powers are? I used to have to do it for ministerial school in order. So I always know it starts with faith. Love. Wisdom. What? Strength. Mm-hmm. That's good. You got 4 out of them.
obviously understanding.
Understanding. You're good, Tim.
And zeal.
Zeal, which is my favorite. I have a pin given to me by Reverend Mark Hicks, which says, I sizzle with enthusiasm. That's zeal. Zeal's my favorite. So the 12 powers are January, it's faith. February, it's strength. March, it's wisdom. April is love. May is power. June is imagination. July is understanding. August is will. September is order. October is zeal. November is elimination. And December is life. And each power has an apostle associated with it, and it has a place in the body. So Fillmore was very much into Eastern religion, so kind of where chakras are where the centers of the 12 powers are. Not exactly, but sort of. So understanding is the front of the brain, or the forehead, which is why we did that meditation today, working with that power. Will is considered the executive power. So our power of will is considered the executive power over all the powers, because it works with all the powers. So if I want more understanding in my life, I have a will to bring that forth in my life. So will works with all the 12 powers. And we have to bring these powers forward. So actually these are 12 expressions of one power. And that one power is the Christ within each of us. These 12 qualities are qualities of the fully awakened man or woman. So this month, July is understanding, and the definition is to perceive, comprehend, and apprehend. Understanding is to see beyond appearances to reality. Now sometimes we get stuck in this physical third dimensional world where we have to see everything. We're like, show me. I'm from Missouri, show me. I'm not from Missouri, I'm from Michigan, you know, but then we get into that show me. And a lot of times our good is in the ethers. It's there, waiting for us to realize it, waiting for us to manifest it. The Apostle Thomas, associated with understanding, he didn't always have spiritual understanding. Kind of like me. Kind of like us, right? He wanted to learn, and he asked questions, and he listened to Jesus, but Thomas questioned the old thinking and beliefs. He questioned all of his old thinking and beliefs. And that's something that we have to do. Our old thinking, our old way of believing. That's what we're called to do, is really look at that and say, where did that come from? Where did that thinking come from? Where do our beliefs come from? They come from our stories. Oh Lord, we love our stories, right? I love a good story, because when somebody's telling me their story, it's all full of, oh, and you can see them feeling it all over again. We love our stories. Sometimes our stories were told to us. Our stories tell ourselves and others what we were told about ourselves. I am not my story. You are not your story. I am my unwritten story. I haven't wrote it yet. Just wait till you see it. It's going to be great. You are not your stories. You are writing your story right now. It's going to be great. The difference between understanding versus wisdom. Wisdom, according to Charles Fillmore, is intuitive knowing. Like that intuition, or the spiritual intuition, you just got that intuition, that feeling. Understanding is the ability of the mind to apprehend and to realize the laws of thought and realization of ideas one to another. So understanding takes some work. Understanding requires you to keep your mind open so that you could maybe look at a problem or a situation and you can see that your thinking is what's driving that situation, so that you can change your mind and think differently about it. It goes like this. When I wake up late and I'm coming to church and I say to myself negative things, oh no, there's not going to be a parking place, I slept late, oh no, there's going to be traffic. What do you think I encounter in the world? Traffic and no parking place. That shows up for me. Now my mom always had the greatest consciousness about parking places. No matter if we were on time or we were late, I remind myself of my mom's consciousness about parking places. And I say to myself positive things like, I always get a great parking spot. And what do you suppose usually shows up? I always get a pretty decent, it might not be right in front of the church, sometimes it is. And I go, oh yeah, I'm in the flow today. I'm in the flow of God today. And that's my mind looking for proof. I co-create through my thoughts and words the reality of parking spaces. And how many other things can we do this with? Can we do it with abundance? Can we do it with love? I'm trying. Whatever power you want to grow, if you have the will and marry it with that power, bring it forth. And that means not sitting home on my couch waiting for love to find me. It means getting up and putting on some makeup and going out and showing up. And sometimes I go, oh, that's a nice guy. And sometimes I go, next. But you gotta kind of move your feet. It goes with that prayer. So that is understanding. Wisdom knows. Understanding knows why. When we comprehend, we understand deeply. When we apprehend, have you ever had something wrong and then all of a sudden you get it right? That's an apprehension. You apprehend that truth. When we apprehend, we realize and appreciate and discern, and then we apply that understanding. So there was a movie called Paul the Apostle of Christ. So Paul's in prison, and Luke, from the Gospels, Paul and Luke. Luke is a doctor, and he goes to tend to Paul in the prison and to record Paul's message before. Do you know what happened, Paul? Yeah. So you have to watch the movie.
Oh.
In prison is a man named Maricus. And Maricus has a daughter who's very, very ill. And he finally allows Luke to come to his home to try to heal her, which Luke does. Maricus was struck by a conversation with Paul. Why should I worship your God, he said. But that was before the healing. Paul explains Christianity to this Roman. Imagine you're on a boat in the ocean, and you cup your hands, and you can get water from the ocean and see the water slip through your hands. Human man believes that this is life simply slipping away. Christians believe that life and God are the ocean. They feel a oneness with that ocean, and there's an abundant supply from that ocean. That was my understanding from that movie. Understanding that I am one with God, like a drop of water in the ocean. You cannot separate the drop of water from the ocean. We are one. Psalm 119:45 said, I will walk in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. Precepts are the rules intended to regulate our behavior and our thought. Precepts are the 12 powers. Precepts are the truth. As spiritual seekers, we seek God's laws. And why do we seek God's laws? Because we want to live more freely. That's usually what, behind every prayer, behind every heart's desire, there's freedom from something. Freedom to do something. Freedom now is about expanding your consciousness. So you say, Carol, how do I expand my consciousness? Well, you gotta have a spiritual practice. Whether it's going to the ocean, or stopping to give gratitude, or reading the daily word, or meditating and praying, we must have spiritual practices. To acquire more understanding, we might read, or we might take a class. Another spiritual practice is to be more interested in your reaction than what's happening to you. Oh, think of that. Think of something that's going on right now where you are maybe a little frustrated with it, or it's not going your way, or you're perceiving it's not going your way. Think about that. Can you be more interested in your reaction than the whole situation? Because I promise you, if you can change your reaction, you can change the whole situation. It's what moves us from being a victim to a victor. When we're stuck in that victim place, oh, that person did that to me. Did they? Or did I judge it as they were doing it? Because I know that nothing and no one is against me. When I am one with that one with that one, I know that nothing is against me. Another spiritual practice is to stay healthy. Health and wholeness are our natural state. A wonderful spiritual practice is to be you in the world. Be who you were meant to be in the world. If you have a gift and everyone has one, I haven't met anyone yet who doesn't have one. Be that gift in the world. Do more of that. Each week we sing Namaste at our church, and today let's take that Namaste outside the doors of the church. Because it's easy to see Christ on Sunday with all of you smiling church people. But can we see Christ in the homeless person we pass on the street, or those we perceive are against us? Can we see Christ in those who simply walk past us and won't make eye contact? Christ is in everything, everywhere. We know that. To gain understanding, let's make friends with hard things. Let's make friends with the hard things that are going on in our lives. Let's make friends with change, with the unknown. Let's make friends with disappointment. To increase our understanding, let us love freely. And if you're not in love with someone right now, act like it anyway. Put your makeup on. Get yourself in your groove. Act like you're in love. Because you are. With yourself and with God. God first. God first. And then each other. To increase our understanding, let us embrace nature. My brother Kenny never found God in a church. Never went to church. He found God on the lake, in the forest, or sitting up in a deer blind. Nature brings us understanding. To increase our understanding, allow yourself to get back into the flow, to realize your creative side. Understanding is, I know how to accomplish. I know my heart. God is in all things. Understand your truth and know that last year's truth is today's horse pucky. Okay, I could have said the BS word, but I didn't. I said horse pucky. I'm getting better at this. Our freedom requires responsibility and understanding. I want to be free at any cost. I want my freedom. But freedom without understanding and responsibility and discipline is not a blessing and can often be a curse. Freedom is not doing what you want, but becoming who you must. I shared with you, ministry was not in anywhere near what I saw for my life. And I still, every now and then, I go into prayer and I go, God, this is what we're doing now. And God says, yep, Carol, this is what you're doing now. Because this was something I had to become. And it took me 5 years of school to do it. And lots of tests. I love it now because you guys are my only test. So far we're doing good. So freedom is not doing what you want, but becoming who you must. Lastly, I invite you to read the 12 powers of man. Cultivate and nurture each of your powers within you. We gain understanding by seeking our own truth. That's what I love about unity. Unity doesn't tell you what your truth is, because your truth and my truth might be different kinds of truth. The truth for you last year is not who you are this year, I hope. Somebody said when I made it through ministerial school, well, Carol's changed. Yeah, we're supposed to be. We're supposed to change. So we gain more understanding by seeking our individual truth. And I remind you of that today. Thank you for letting me talk to you today about understanding and that power. Thank you.
Thank you.